Well, first I'd like to say that I agree with Councilmember Scharf, especially on the point that we shouldn't be reacting so much to what high-speed rail has been thrusting forward and have that dictate our own sense of timing and process. I think that what they are planning to do is a prescription for failure. It is the sort of process that resulted in the horrendous backlash on the peninsula previously. Now, we need to recognize that this is not a four-track system, a full four-track system. It's a hybrid blended system eventually. And so the impacts are not as great, but they're making the same process errors. And an 18-month cycle time for this complexity of an EIR is not realistic. And so part of what we need to do is not do what the staff report has kind of driven us to, which is how do we contend with this 18-month period. We need to strongly, clearly oppose it and rally the support of the other cities on the peninsula to share this. I can tell you at the local policymaker group meeting, which is the one representative from each city advising Caltrain modernization, that group was completely caught off guard by the high-speed rail EIR action. And the only reason it actually came before the local policymaker group was because I was alerted by CARD members that the last high-speed rail board meeting in August had in fact authorized this, and Caltrain was not bringing it before that body on their own. They didn't bring it before the technical working group, which preceded it by days. So this goes to, we've had a process that started off with real shortcomings in transparency by high-speed rail on multiple fronts. They may be starting to try to correct themselves, but I think they're partial measures to correct themselves. They said, well, we'll incorporate some CSS-like components to the process, and that's not going to cut it. We and other cities need to be real clear. Now, part of the problem is we've had a real turnover in many of the electeds and staff members who are engaged in this, not only in Palo Alto, but throughout the peninsula since we had our heavy lifting on this from 2009 to 2012. And so there's going to be a re-education process for staffs, electeds, and the public. But we will also see kind of a while for this to actually percolate in terms of the concern level, I believe anyway. It's going to take a little while for people to absorb what are the potential consequences of this. But we need to be clear in terms of what high-speed rail is proposing. They're proposing up to a total of 20 trains per hour, 4 trains per hour per direction from high-speed rail and 6 trains per hour per direction from Caltrain. 20 trains per hour, 1 train every 3 minutes, with what amount of downtime and recovery at the signals. We would have virtual gridlock with that amount of trains. They are proposing $0 from high-speed rail for grade separations. They're suggesting that they will help fund quad gates, and that's their intended solution. So we have a big disconnect between what they're proposing and what is at all feasible. It's also that they're saying that the CEQA process will address the impacts on us. And as we know from the Caltrain electrification EIR, there's a state and a federal environmental exemption for the impacts of additional trains. Because under the notion that there are progressive improvement to transportation and therefore you can't squawk about those impacts. And so it's false when high-speed rail has claimed that we're going to be protected by the AIR process, just like it was false when previous high-speed rail representatives made those same claims. So I'm going to want to revisit in the next go-round what we should do and what actions we should take from this point forward.